Hello, friends. It's Paul from Mission Gathering, and I just wanted to take this moment to, in the middle of the week, share some thoughts with you about really what it means to me uh, to worship. What does really worship look like? And especially now, when we can't be together corporately, um, and I see a lot of different examples of how churches work out what this means, worship, and it involves singing and it involves different things. Um, but I just thought I would just share some of the most influential thoughts, ideas to me about what it means to worship. And probably the one of the most influential writings of worship is a little untraditional. Comes from this great author, Annie Dillard. It's a tiny little book, a powerful little book called Holy the Firm. And I would just like to read this passage, not the whole thing, read this passage to you. That to me gets to the essence of what worship looks like. So let me read this to you. 2 summers ago, I was camping alone in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. I had hauled myself and gear up there to read, among other things, James Ramsey Ullman's The Day on Fire, a novel about Rimbaud that made me want to be a writer when I was 16. I was hoping it would do it again, so I read, lost every day, sitting under a tree by my tent, while warblers swung in the leaves overhead and bristleworms trailed their inches over the twiggy dirt at my feet. And I read every night by candlelight, while bared owls called in the forest and pale moths massed around my head in the clearing where my light made a ring. Moths kept flying into the candle. They would hiss and recoil, lost upside down in the shadows among my cooking pans, where they would singe their wings and fall, and their hot wings, as if melted, would stick to the first thing they touched, a pan, a lid, a spoon, so that the snagged moths could flutter only in tiny arcs, unable to struggle free. These I could release by a quick flip with a stick in the morning. I would find my cooking stuff gilded with torn flecks of moth wings, triangles of shiny dust here and there on aluminum. So I read, and boiled water, and replenished candles, and read on. One night a moth flew into the candle, was caught, burnt dry, and held. I must have been staring at the candle, or maybe I looked up when a shadow crossed my page. At any rate, I saw it all. A golden female moth, a biggish one, with a 2-inch wingspan flapped into the fire, dropped her abdomen into the wet wax, stuck, flame, frazzled, and fried in a second. Her moving wings ignited like tissue paper, enlarging the circle of light in the clearing, and created out of the darkness the sudden blue sleeves of my sweater, the green leaves of jewelweed by my side, the ragged red trunk of a pine. At once the light contracted again, and the moth's wings vanished in a fine, foul smoke. At the same time, her 6 legs clawed, curled, blackened, and ceased, disappearing utterly, and her head jerked in spasms, making a spattering noise. Her antennae crisped and burned away, and her heaving mouthparts crackled like pistol fire. When it was all over, her head was, so far as I could determine, gone. Gone the long way of her wings and legs. Had she been new or old? Had she mated and laid her eggs? Had she done her work? All that was left was the glowing horn shell of her abdomen and thorax, a fraying, partially collapsed gold tube jammed upright in the candle's round pool. And then this moth essence, this spectacular skeleton, began to act as a wick. She kept burning. The wax rose in the moth's body from her soaking abdomen to her thorax, to the jagged hole where her head should be, and widened into flame, a saffron yellow flame that robed her to the ground like any emulating monk. That candle had 2 wicks, 2 flames of identical height, side by side. The moth's head was fire. She burned for 2 hours until I blew her out. She burned for 2 hours without changing, without bending or leaning, only glowing within, like a burning fire glimpsed through silhouetted walls, like a hollow saint, like a flame-faced virgin gone to God. While I read by her light, kindled, while Rimbaud and Paris burnt out his brains in 1,000 poems, while night pooled wetly at my feet. Yeah, there's something about it. Obviously, it's so violent, so graphic in its detail, but on the surface, it's really about worship to me. Not on the surface, deeper is about worship to me. Worship throughout Scripture always had to do something with fire. Fire is this image of the presence of God. And so here in this story, I think the mystery, the presence of God represented in the candle. And I'm like the moth. I'm trying to get closer until I get so close that I get stuck. And then both I and the fire become one. And I become like a wick, a source for the fire, a fuel, a material for the fire to embody. And I don't know what it is about that mysterious image that both repels me and attracts me. That's what worship looks like in all of our, and it's not like we become like self-emulating monks, but there is some piece of it that our ego, our concept of self, our will to create ourselves dies in a flame to this mystery. This God who consumes entirely and somehow lives through us, but it's not that we disappear. We become maybe our truest self. And so as you are discovering what worship looks like for you in these strange days and what it looks like going forward, I encourage you to meditate on this. What does it mean for you to get close to the fire? How close would you like to be?